And we're back. So I just recorded I was just live on a different live and lost everything because I had a phone call come through and it ruins your lives, which is a funny thing. But anyway, we're back. We're talking about fear of flying, and I'm going to give a recap again for those who are just joining us now, who are interested in this topic. Maybe you didn't hear the start of the last one as well. So fear of flying comes up a lot with the people I work with, and part of that is because it impacts 40% of the population, right? So 40% of people have some degree of anxiety around flying, and it's such an interesting fear, actually, because as I was just explaining, it actually has nothing to do with planes, as we typically have been led to believe, or we might logically think that it's because of the plane or some terrible things happen on a plane. Sometimes we have had a scary moment on a plane, but typically there's a whole other thing around this. So as I was explaining, we can be afraid of actually dying in a plane crash. We can be afraid of the claustrophobia of being in a small enclosed confined place, or we can be afraid of having a panic attack on the plane and not being able to escape. Where can you go? Right, you're on a plane. So these things are some of the variations in the fear of flying, also called aviophobia. So you can call yourself an aviophobe if you want. But really, this is such an important one to address because I think it's such a clear signifier of one of those fears that holds us back in our lives. It holds us back from attending family events, funerals overseas, getting back together with loved ones, having fun adventures with friends, and those moments that really matter where we can be all together having some amazing experience. Traveling is such a beautiful way to live your life and explore the world. And when we're held back from that, it can have quite an impact on our sense of freedom, our sense of how capable we are, feeling like life is available to you and you can go out and do these things. So we had quite a few people on the previous live saying that, yes, they can relate to this. If you can relate, please comment below. Feel free to contribute to the conversation and ask me questions if you have them as well. And do share if there's a particular experience that you have around this. But we're getting some light bulb moments around the whole fear of flying thing. And what else have I missed here? Yeah, the other thing that holds us back from is potentially our careers as well. If we can't get to the meeting we need to go to or the training we need to be at in person, right? If we can't get on a plane, we can't go and do these things. So it's actually quite an overlooked area, I feel, that really does hold us back. And so I want to show you how you can work with this and move forward, because it can be treated and it's not something you have to experience for the rest of your life. You don't have to also keep drugging yourself up to get on a plane and feel relaxed in whatever ways you might do that. There's all sorts of things that you can work with in that regard, but it's not necessarily how we want to experience travel and experience our lives. We want to feel genuinely that we have that power within us to do whatever the hell we want and to live life in the way that feels free. So when this fear of flying comes up, if a client I'm working with mentions fear of flying, I jump straight onto it with them because I see that as another piece of their power, another piece of their self-confidence, self-belief that has somewhere along the way been taken, lost, forgotten. And we get to go claim that back. And that's going to have a huge impact on someone's self-confidence and their self-esteem and self-worth too. So you might also notice that if you've been in a situation where you are panicking on a plane or anxious about the plane, it doesn't make a difference when people say to you, just calm down, it's all safe, it's really unlikely that anything's going to go wrong, and they can tell you all the statistics about the safety, and they can tell you how safe the plane is, and they can tell you that whatever they might say to reassure you, it just doesn't work, does it? And the reason it doesn't work is because it's at the conscious level, and this is the level of logic and reasoning. And right now we're all on the conscious level. So we're in the beta zone of our brain, beta brainwave state. If we get into the alpha brainwave state, that's where we can start talking on the subconscious level. That's where we can get to our subconscious mind. And the thing is, this program of fear around flying is happening at the subconscious level. The body doesn't feel safe. There's an automatic program running out that doesn't feel safe. No matter how many times we say to ourselves, I feel safe, I'm safe, I know I'm safe, I'm on the plane, and nothing's probably gonna go wrong, it's okay. Your body's not feeling it. Your subconscious mind doesn't agree with you. And so what we want to do is we want to get that subconscious mind agreeing and seeing the reality that you are safe. But to do that, we have to figure out where it came from in the first place. And it didn't come from a scary moment on a plane. It came from an experience somewhere in your early life. And this is so common that there's something from our childhood, some moment where we didn't feel safe. And with fear of flying, it can vary for individuals, but it typically goes back to something like fear of losing control. So a moment when you were a young kid and you didn't feel like you had control. What that does to us is it makes us say, go swing back the other way. We want control. We become hypervigilant and really good at controlling things because we don't like that feeling of losing control. And being on a plane is the ultimate feeling of being out of control. There's someone else flying it, you're not flying it, anything could happen, right? You can't see where you're going, you're not in control. And typically, if this is the route for you, you'll also struggle with letting other people drive the car. Like there'll be that part of you also watching the road and commenting and making sure they're, braking the brakes at the right time and stopping at the red light and all of those things. So that might be the thing. But it can also be fear of being incapable of being safe or a sense of feeling trapped. Now, feeling trapped doesn't actually always happen physically. So sometimes we might have felt trapped in the past, not as in you were like, locked in a giant freezer by accident or something. I mean, that was the feeling that came up for me a few weeks ago when I tried cryotherapy for the first time, in the full chamber, and you had to go into 3 different chambers, and each chamber you had to spend 30 seconds between the chambers. So you couldn't even, and they were freezing cold, and they just got colder and colder as you went through each of the chambers. By the time you're in the 3rd coldest chamber that was like a negative 120 degrees, and you're in there for 3 minutes and you can't get out unless you go back through the other chambers. So anyway, that brought up some fear for me. That was quite an intense experience. I don't want to do it again. But anyway, we don't have to be physically trapped like that to have this fear of being trapped, because often what's happened is sometime in our early life, we felt emotionally trapped. We felt like we couldn't get out or get to safety. And this can happen for a variety of reasons. Sometimes it's because there's literally not a caregiver around, an adult that loves us, that can just hold us and soothe us. When we're, as little children, if we don't have that, we cannot soothe ourselves. So we need an adult to come over and calm us down. And if that doesn't happen, we often develop various forms of anxiety later in life, but this fear of flying can be a classic one. And you see, it's got nothing to do with planes. So we can feel trapped in our emotional state. We can feel like we've got nowhere we can go. No one understands us is a classic one. And these moments, they're emotional, and they are sometimes not even aware, something that's in our awareness until we go back. A lot of these past memories in the subconscious mind come up in a session as a surprise. It's subconscious. It's beneath the level of your conscious awareness, right? And it's not like you're thinking about it when you're on the plane. That's the other thing, right? So feeling out of control, feeling trapped in some way, we might have that fear of losing control from, let's imagine you're a 5-year-old in your bed, and this is where the live got cut off last time. You're a 5-year-old lying in your bed late at night, and you have just had a bad dream, and you've woken up and you're feeling this sense of fear, right? Because you've had this bad dream. But you don't want to go bother your parents again, because if you bother them again, they're going to get mad at you because they want to just keep sleeping and they've told you, don't come in and bother us. And so you're lying there in your bed, you've got this fear, it's dark, you're alone in holding that emotion. You don't have the adult coming over to soothe you and calm you and tell you it's all going to be okay. And in that moment, we can start to decide, oh, I'm losing control, and I've got this part of me, this thing inside me that can lose control. And so I need to double down on the control, and I need to make sure that I never lose control again. So then fast forward, we put that adult on a plane, and they're going to be in that state of, I can't lose this control. No way. So if we want to get to the root and get over this fear of flying, we can't do it consciously. We can't do it with talk therapy. We have to do it at the subconscious level. So the way that I do this with clients is we lie down, get cozy in bed, and I talk them through a process where they can actually release these fears. And once they're gone, which is pretty amazing. So if you are curious to learn more about this and how we can get over something like a fear of flying, but also other fears as well, and all the elements that are related to high functioning anxiety, then you can go check out my free masterclass. It takes you through the whole process of how to master your anxious mind, how to overcome fears like this. Someone's just shared, I throw up when on planes, but I'm not scared. Is there a thing where I don't know about it? Well, I would say if you're only throwing up on the plane, that's the trigger moment, there is quite likely some kind of patterning happening. But if you're not noticing that you're scared, sometimes we are having an emotional experience, but we're not actually connected to our body. So we're not even aware that we're feeling something. So it could be that, or it could be that there's something that just triggers you to feel nauseous and throw up on a plane. And that can sometimes be a mental program as well that's being programmed in, and all of this stuff can be worked on the subconscious level, which is really cool. But I just find it most profound and most life-changing for people when we are working with fear, because fear permeates every area of our lives, our relationships, our sense of confidence in ourselves, going for our dreams, feeling happy in life, all of it. So hang on, we've got a bit of a chat going now. So I throw up also when in the airport and feel nauseated every time I throw up, every time I go out. Okay, so if it's not just on a plane and it's not just at the airport, it's just every time you go out that you feel that nausea and that sense of throwing up, I would say there's probably some kind of emotion going on that you might not be connected to. It could be a fear thing. It's probably quite likely to be anxiety, because we often get panic and anxiety around with symptoms like nausea. So that's my guess, but then I'd have to ask you a lot more about that. Tennille said, what about if the fear is from a bad experience on an aircraft? Yeah, so glad you brought that up. So that can be something that's related, but even if we were to explore that fear and go into and process the trauma that you experienced in that really scary moment, where maybe there was a really shoddy landing or a lot of turbulence and people were flying out of their seats, or some scary thing happened, right? So you can have obviously trauma from that. Or if it was a car accident, right? You didn't have a car accident before in your life. However, typically when we don't recover well from an experience like that, and there's this ongoing trauma response that keeps kind of coming up, and we can't get over it, that's where usually we were primed for that earlier in our childhood experiences. There's something in us that all along believed that we weren't capable, or that we can't lose control, or that we're not capable of feeling our emotions, that's too much losing control, and that's not safe. And so what happens is then when the big emotional experience happens, we get this confirmation bias. It's kind of like, oh, I always knew I wouldn't be able to handle something like this, or this has shaken me to my core because I always knew I was a lot of people I work with have this belief that they're like weak, I'm a weak person, life's too much for me, right? So I hope that's given you a bit of clarity around that. Shan says, mine's definitely the sense of feeling trapped, like I can't go anywhere. And it's the fear of having a panic attack on the plane. I fear the fear. Yeah, super duper common, fearing the fear. But again, this will come back to being a little kid somewhere and emotions feeling too big, something happening when you're growing up that just felt too big and out of your control. And at that point of your life, yes, it was too big. It was out of control and you couldn't process it. But now as an adult, you actually do have the resources, but this program still believes you're a child. It still believes you've got that same level of ability to regulate your nervous system, which is not much, right? So what we need to do is upgrade that childlike program and get you feeling and aware that you are this adult now that can soothe and can get through difficult emotional experiences. And that is when panic attacks, panic disorder, fear of fear, we don't have to keep coping with it in the same way. We can move on with our lives. Beautiful. Thanks so much, guys. I've really enjoyed the chat with you, and I will save this video because I feel like there was quite a few of you resonating. So beautiful to chat. Post any comments on the video if you're watching the replay, and I will happily answer them there. But if you are interested in learning more about how this stuff works, go check out my masterclass. There's a link in my bio, or I can DM it to you as well. If you send me the word masterclass, I'll send through all the details. Have a beautiful night.